Hello and welcome to the Positive Images Festival Poetry Workshop for November. It's so wonderful to see you here again. Thank you for joining me. A special thank you to everybody who's subscribed to the channel. I need 100 followers to be able to use the live function for events and workshops, and I'm at 87 now, so if you haven't already and you feel like you would like to press the subscribe button underneath here, then please do, and if you already have, thank you so much, it's much appreciated. So I've got some exciting things coming up for you today. Obviously there will be guinea pig noises because that's what happens here in this room with lots of guinea pigs. I've also got a couple of other visitors who have joined us today because it's cold and wet outside, and they might make an appearance later. As far as poetry is concerned, we're going to have a look. I've had 3 requests to do this over the last few months, so I will respond. Don't say I don't listen. I will respond to what people want, and we're going to have a look at improving your confidence when reading and performing poems. So hopefully that will be interesting. And before that, we've got some writing activities. We're going to have a look at one of the well-known beat poets from America, and we're going to have a look at a very famous Chilean poet. So stick around, what's not to love? Activity 1. So this is called Poet's Obligation, and it's by Pablo Neruda. And let me tell you a bit about Pablo Neruda. I thought I hadn't got the bio then, I suddenly panicked. It's okay, I do. Chilean poet, diplomat and politician who was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1971. He was perhaps the most influential Latin American poet of the 20th century. That's not me saying that, that's like the verified sources that have suggested that one. So this is Poet's Obligation. It's a 3-stanza poem. There's quite a chunky first stanza, a very chunky second stanza, and then just a couplet to finish with, a non-rhyming couplet. To whoever is not listening to the sea this Friday morning, to whoever is cooped up in house or office, factory or woman or street or mine, or harsh prison cell, to him I come, and without speaking or looking, I arrive and open the door of his prison, and a vibration starts up, vague and insistent. A great fragment of thunder sets in motion. The rumble of the planet and the foam, the raucous rivers of the ocean flood. The star vibrates swiftly in its corona, and the sea is beating, dying and continuing. So, drawn on by my destiny, I ceaselessly must listen to and keep the seas lamenting in my awareness. I must feel the crash of hard water and gather it up in a perpetual cup, so that wherever those in prison may be, wherever they suffer the autumn's castigation, I may be there with an errant wave. I may move, passing through windows, and hearing me, eyes will glance upward, saying, how can I reach the sea? And I shall broadcast, saying nothing. The starry echoes of the wave, a breaking up of foam and quicksand, a rustling of salt withdrawing, the grey cry of the seabirds on the coast. So through me, freedom and the sea will make their answer to the shuttered heart. Okay, it's a long one, there's a lot to take in. If you want to rewind and listen to it again, that is absolutely fine. If you want to read the original for yourself, then you can Google the title Poet's Obligation, and that's by Pablo Neruda, Neruda. And hopefully it's on screen so that you can see it. The reason I picked this one is the imagery that's used in the poem, and also I liked the point of it. The title makes it clear straight away what it's about, Poet's Obligation, and it uses the imagery to make the point. He doesn't just use statements and tell us this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to do, and think of lots of things that he wants to do as a poet. He focuses on one thing, that he wants to reach people who are trapped, maybe in prison, maybe people who are like in the offices stuck on a Friday and they can't get to the sea, maybe the people who are really in prison, a literal prison. He wants to reach those people with his words, and he wants to bring them the sound, the taste, the feel of the sea, which he thinks is freedom. He wants to bring that to them. We'd have had a good chat about this if we were here in real life together at a workshop, I think. One of my favourite lines is the rumble of the planet and the foam, the raucous rivers of the ocean flood. So he hasn't just kept saying, I'm going to bring the sea, I'm going to bring them the ocean sounds, I'm going to bring them this. He's really specific. He mentions the seabirds, he mentions the foam and the tides and the waves and the rivers. He's really specific within the poem. And if you look through, you'll see it for yourself. He says he's going to gather it up in a perpetual cup. And it's wonderful. So we've got this lovely imagery, and then we have got some of those concrete lines in between. Because we always say show, don't tell. But you can do a little bit of telling just to make it clear what's going on. So we have those lovely descriptions, and then he specifically comes out and says it. Wherever those in prison may be, wherever they suffer the autumn's castigation, I may be there with an errant wave. I really like that. And then, of course, at the end, so through me, freedom and the sea will make their answer to the shuttered heart. And that answer is the question that he imagines them asking earlier in, how can I get to the sea? The sea may be representing freedom in this poem. So, lovely people, here is your writing challenge. What is your obligation as a poet? So if you were writing Poet's Obligation, what do you want to do? Why do you write? What is your hope for your poetry when you write it? Now, it's okay if you just write for yourself. It's okay if you write for peace of mind or enjoyment and then you put them in the folder and maybe you share them with a couple of people but you mostly keep them to yourself. That can still make a good poem because it's still a reason. Just really explore why you write and what you want to do with your poetry. And I will see you in the next task. Welcome back and good work on the last task. Feel free to say in the comments under this video how you find these tasks, if you find them useful. If you've got any advice for people or you want to share what you wrote about, please do comment. It's so nice to read the comments in the underneath the videos and to see what people are thinking and to get some discussions going. This is called A Poem for Vipers and it's by John Wieners. Born in Boston, I have to read this because I don't remember it all, I'm not that clever. Poet John Wieners was a beat poet and member of the San Francisco Renaissance. Yep, it was Renaissance. Wieners was also an anti-war and gay rights activist. His poetry combines candid accounts of sexual and drug-related experimentation with jazz-influenced improvisation, placing both in a lyrical structure. So, really interesting. Not to everyone's tastes, but I always say that in the group. If you don't like this, that's okay. It doesn't mean it's a bad poem, and it doesn't mean that you're wrong because I like it and you don't. It's called personal preference, and that is a good, healthy thing to have. So this is a poem for vipers. I sit in Lee's at 11:40 p.m. with Jimmy the pusher. He teaches me juju. Hot on the table before us, shrimp foo young, rice and mushroom chow yuk. Up the street under the wheels of a strange car is his stash, the ritual. We make it, and have made it, for months now together after midnight. Soon I know the furs will interrupt, will arrest Jimmy and I shall be placed on probation. The poem does not lie to us. We lie under its law, alive in the glamour of this hour, able to enter into sacred spaces of his dark people who carry secrets glassed in their eyes and hide words under the coats of their tongue. Might be another one you want to have another listen to, because again, it's quite packed at the end there with the description. And I just think it's such a great poem. It's another one that I like the more times I read it. What I would like you to do is consider how this poem seems sort of mundane almost at the start. That he's just sat, we know something's a bit up because he's got a mate called Jimmy the Pusher, which is sort of a bit of a sign really, if that's his nickname. But they're just sat at the table having Chinese and enjoying it. And then he's like, yeah, and soon we'll do our ritual where we go to the car. And then it sort of takes a turn towards the end. It's a one stanza poem, but it sort of changes in that line. The poem does not lie to us. And then it does get really poetic. They lie under its law, enter into sacred spaces, carry secrets in their glassed in their eyes. And that final wonderful line. I love a good last line. And hide words under the coats of their tongues. Stunning stuff. So it really does, it sets the scene in the first bit that this is what we do, this is how it is, it's repetitive, here we are, it's very plain, but then it gets exciting because, and it's okay because it's not for children, this video, you know, they're going to go and get high, the stash is under the car, that's where the drugs are, they're going to go and enjoy them, and then suddenly it's going to liven their life up quite a bit. There is an acceptance in this poem that this is not going to end well. He says the poem doesn't lie to us, and he said, you know, oh, Jimmy will get arrested and I'll be put on probation and they're going to, you know, they'll interrupt us. But he like keeps doing it anyway, and the last few lines really offer the explanation of that. So it's something that could seem fairly mundane, them having this dinner each week, but the bit afterwards he really looks forward to, clearly. And he explains why it takes him out of his world. So your challenge is not to write a poem about drug use, although you can if you want because it's your poem. But it would be great if you write an anecdotal poem. So think of something, and maybe it's just a really like silly plain, sorry this is something on my foot, really silly plain story or memory, you know, something when you were a kid at school that you and your friends used to like doing. But it's important to you and it was something you enjoyed, and maybe you can explain it in a poetic way. And you're doing really well. Stick with me. I'll see you in the next part and I will show you what has been stood on my foot for the last 2 minutes. Okay, there's a reason to come back. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. So you hopefully have written 2 poems or drafted 2 poems already. Don't expect to finish them today. You can if you want, but you know, maybe give them a week or so and come back to them and edit them and go through them again. And now, of course, those who have done these before will be familiar with the best practice quote section of our workshop. It's where I find a quote from a poet or about poetry or both usually, and you can have a think about it. So this is by W.H. Auden today. I think most of you all know him. Auden was a poet, author and playwright. He was a leading literary influencer in the 20th century, known for his chameleon-like ability to write poems in almost every verse form. Auden's travels in countries torn by political strife influenced his early works. He won the Pulitzer Prize in 1948. And he says, "A poet is, before anything else, a person who is passionately in love with language." A poet is, before anything else, a person who is passionately in love with language. And I was curious whether you related to that as a poet. Do you enjoy language? Do you enjoy playing with it? Would you say you were in love with language? I think I am a bit. So I should imagine that maybe you might be as well. So I did promise I would show you what I've got with me today, my special guests. There's 2 of them. As you know, there's usually 7 of us in the room. There's Lara the hamster, the 5 guinea pigs and myself. Well, today, because it's such cold weather at the moment, I've got in the 2 rabbits who usually live in the garden, and I would show you them on the floor, but the floor is disgusting because it's covered in hay and rabbits and you would judge me. But this is Tallulah. So this is Tallulah Rabbit. Tallulah's a bit of a mongrel, but she's got a little bit of lop in her, so that's why she's got the big floppy ears. So yeah, say hello, Tallulah. This is my lion-haired rabbit, Moses. Say hi. You love poetry, don't you? So these are in here keeping me company today. I know I get a lot of requests to see animals each session. I get emails and Facebook messages going, oh, it was so lovely to see the guinea pigs or the hamster, you know, it'd be great to see them next time. So animals and poetry, you know, if you like both those things, you have come to the right place. And here is the final part of our session, tips for reading your poetry. So it might not be yours, it might be reading other people's poetry. So it could be reading in a group setting, in a workshop setting, and maybe you don't feel the most confident. I know sometimes I've asked people if they want to read, you can see them thinking, don't ask me, because it is quite daunting, especially if you don't know the people in the room. And then some people just want to be able to perform their own work, but they don't feel confident in doing it at the moment, or they want to know maybe a few tips on how to do it better, if you like. These are my tips. I'm not saying these are the correct tips. This is just from my experience, from personal experience, my preferences. Here is what I would suggest for you. And I'm certainly not saying like I do it correctly. I don't think there is a correct way. I think we all have our own sort of ways and styles. But if it's something you would like to work on, then definitely do it. The other thing that I would say about reading aloud is that it really does, you really can feel whether your poem works or not. You can see if there's any extra syllables in there, any words that don't feel very poetic or quite right. So before you edit a poem, I think it's really good to read it out loud a couple of times, pretend, you know, on your own, read it to your pets, read it to yourself, read it to anyone you live with, and just see how it sounds out loud. Because I quite often, I think it's finished and then I will make more edits once I've read it out loud. So here's some tips for you that will hopefully appear also on the screen. Speak slowly and clearly. And a normal talking speed will sound too quick when you're reading a poem. There's nothing worse than someone rushing through the poem, and I used to do this. I talk quite quick anyway, you may have noticed, coming to the workshops. So I have to really remember to slow down. And it feels like you're talking really slowly, but you're actually not. You know, we need time to process and digest the words that are being said. And if you go through them at a really quick speed, it's very hard to keep up what's being said, especially if it's a poem with lots of description. And it's hard to listen to. So slow down. When you think you're reading it slowly, you can always slow it down a lot more. You're never going to read too slowly. Well, maybe like the very extreme of that, but generally. The other thing not to do is to hold the paper in front of your face, because we want to see who's performing or who's reading, and that's not helpful. Also, it covers people being able to see your lips, it covers maybe some of the sound. So whether you feel it or not, keep the paper down if possible, and look up and make eye contact. If you find making eye contact awkward, look just above the people who you're reading to, because they can't tell. If you're reading it, and there's only a couple of people there, then if you look at the top of someone's head, at the top of their nose, it still looks like you're looking them in the eye. They won't be able to tell that you're not. So if you feel uncomfortable looking people in the eye, then you can just go for the top of the head and it has the same impact. This is my pet hate. Again, like I said, personal, is people who declare they do not need a microphone. If there's a microphone there, please use it. I know at first they look scary, but whenever anybody has said they don't need a microphone, I've never heard them. Even though they think they're loud, especially if you're sat at the back of the room, there's nothing worse. You know, we've all been to kids' assemblies and things. There's nothing worse than not being able to hear what is being said. And you don't know who's in the audience. There might be I don't have the best hearing in my right ear. So I was great as a kid at ruining Chinese whispers. So I don't need in my adult life somebody telling me that they don't need to use a microphone, because I won't hear them. And there'll be people who maybe have got really poor hearing who won't be able to then access it if you've decided not to use it. If you do use a microphone, don't be scared of it. Don't stand away. They work when you are really close to them and you feel like your lips are about to touch it, but you're speaking right into it, and that's how you need to use it. So don't shy away from it. Just go in and go for it. Stand right by the mic, give yourself a good posture, paper down, and go for it. Now, when you're reading a poem, I personally like it if you try and change maybe the pace at points. Like I said, don't read really quickly so we can't hear. But I did a poem in the accessible session, the session before this one, the quick 5-minute one, and it lent itself to being read at a good pace, but you still need to be clear when you're speaking. So I'll just do the first stanza of the poem so you can hear it. Life gets faster every day, no time to think, no time to play. Hurry, chaos, lots of stress, tension leads to sleeplessness. It feels like quite a fast pace, but I am making time for each word within that as well. And it doesn't matter what your accent is, I've got a good Midlands accent, as you can hear. It doesn't matter where you're from, that's nothing to do with it. You just need to leave space for the words to make it really clear so that people can understand you as best as possible. So yeah, the thing is just to keep it interesting as well, because if you're meant to pause and slow down on certain bits, like at the bottom of that poem in the second stanza, it's only 2 stanzas, so I've now just read you the whole poem. The second part of that, I need to find my paperwork, that's a definite don't do that. But do as I say, not as I do. When will all this madness cease? Where is free time? Where is peace? I'm running, doing, till I drop. Give me buttons. Pause. Mute. Stop. And for me, I just felt like it needed to slow down. You might read it differently. You might want to keep the pace up until there. But that's how I felt it should be read. That's where I felt the pauses for me. So when I'm reading, I express them. Also, try and change the tone. If you just read everything in a monosyllabic voice and you don't change how you're saying it, it will all stay at the same tone and it's really boring. So do alternate your voice. Life gets faster every day, there's some intonation in there. And that just comes, you would read like that anyway. I think, when you're reading a children's story, maybe some of you have got nieces, nephews, children, grandchildren, or you might have worked in schools. Chances are you've probably, at some point in your life, read a story to a child. And they're not going to listen if you just read it really boring. You have to put the voices on, you have to make it exciting and sound surprised and happy in the right places. And that comes naturally. Kids do that. They start off doing that and we learn not to do it. So you've got to learn to do it again and to sort of be not self-conscious about it and just go for it. Because actually your work sounds better if you're reading it, in an excited way and you're feeling it. I think that's the key to a lot of this here is confidence. And maybe you're thinking, oh, well, that's great, thanks a lot, I don't have that, so what? Nobody has it. That's the sort of clue here. I have been doing poetry, not well at first, but, for a long time. And the first time I knew I was going to read out loud at an open mic, I didn't eat all day because I was so nervous I couldn't even think about it. I was the extreme of nervous. I just thought, all the things that could happen if I eat, I might feel unwell while I'm there, just these crazy ideas. And after I'd done it once, I was like, oh, well, that was ridiculous. I was worrying about it. And even now, I don't get nervous anymore because I enjoy it. There's still the adrenaline. And okay, maybe it's the same feeling because, you still get the heart palpitations potentially, you get butterflies or, you feel a little shaky. But I like that feeling now. It's it's an excited thing rather than a nervous thing. So maybe if you think you're nervous, you could tell yourself you're excited. And so also what I was going to say is what I do is I play a part. So I will I think, like, you know, normal me is not good enough to do this. It's not, it's not, you know, a great performer. So I play a part. I act, you know, Emily the poet. And I think it's not a lie, it's not me being somebody else, it is me. But I do find it easier to go up and think, tonight, Matthew, I'm going to be a poet. And then it gives you the fake confidence that you need to be able to perform. And it's quite a thrill, you know, you go and you do the performance and you think, oh, I was a poet, that's amazing. And maybe this is a really crazy way of looking at it, and there's other normal poets who think differently. I don't know. It's not a conversation that a lot of us have. I do know other people get nervous, and I do know that all of us remember our first few terrible performances where we were really nervous. But the reason you go and do it again is because, one, you enjoy it. That's the key here. Enjoy performing. If you hate it, then maybe don't put yourself through it unless you want to challenge yourself. But also because people are kind. Poets generally are very, very kind people and supportive. They know how it feels to do your first performance or your second performance, or be in your first year or two of writing and reading it out in front of people. And they will come up to you afterwards and say, well done. They'll encourage you to do it, and they mean it, which is the important thing. And also, you know, if you want to, I think it's a great idea to practice a bit at home, maybe in front of a mirror, because you can see what you're doing, and you know, it just makes it a little less awkward if you've seen yourself performing. And it means that, like, for me, I don't memorise poems. I don't think you need to. It looks great for people who do, and I have huge admiration for them, but you don't need to. That's the key. I usually know them well enough that I can lift my head up to do the eye contact for a few lines and then just quickly glance back down to see what's coming up next. So I think it's nice to read it through a few times just so you feel confident on what's coming up. In a workshop, you might not get that opportunity because you're just given something and asked to read it in front of the group, or you've only just written it and you've got terrible handwriting and you're going to struggle to read it. But the thing applies, you know. Do it with confidence, and it doesn't matter, you know. People will appreciate it. There's back to just looking at the tones. I've put down a load of notes here. Don't force a poem into iambic pentameter. So iambic pentameter is the da-dum, 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 and it's got the stressed and unstressed syllables. Not all poetry will read like that, and if yours doesn't, then don't force it. So if we look back at one of the poems that we did earlier in the session, I'll just find the first one, the Pablo Neruda one. That is definitely not written in iambic pentameter. It doesn't rhyme. It's, no matter how I read it, it's not going to read that way. And it would sound odd if I did. To whoever is not listening to the sea this Friday morning, to whoever is cooped up, that sounds horrible. Some poems read nicely like that. That one doesn't. So read it as you feel you should. Pause in the right places. Pause at the line breaks and the commas and the full stops. But don't force it into being read a certain way. There was a little trend a few years ago for people always going up at the end of their sentences, like everything was a question. And for me, like, that didn't fit into the natural reading of it. So again, I would advise against keeping the same tone and going up at the end of every sentence. You know, read the words how you feel each one should be read, not just because you think, oh, at the end of a line I read it like this. Just checking all my notes. Yeah, this is it's a great idea to read all of your poems out loud, even if you're not going to take them to an audience, because, as I said, that's when I tend to make edits. So if you've written something today in the session, read it out loud a couple of times. You'll soon spot where you've got the bits that feel clunky and not quite right. And I think one of the most important things really is just that idea of confidence, that idea of self-belief. And I know that for me personally and other people, I do know this bit, that I've spoken to other poets who maybe have had like mental health difficulties, or who have got low confidence in themselves for a variety of reasons. Perhaps people have told them in the past, like, you know, even at school or something, that they weren't good enough. You are good enough. So I always love listening to people read. I'm never going to sit there and judge somebody else and think, they didn't read it well, or that's not how I'd have done it. You, at an open mic night especially, you enjoy hearing the variety of voices, the variety of performances. So why would anybody sit there and judge you? But yet we still worry about it. And the other thing is, like, again, me and lots of other people, you think nice things about other people. You think, oh, that was great. Oh, I'm so glad they shared that poem. They read that really well. It's so lovely to hear them. All those other things. I really enjoyed that. Oh, but when you're talking to yourself, you know, your self-talk is not always kind. I have quite often thought, you know, why do they want to hear me? Why would anyone want to listen to my poem? And there's this like voice constantly in your head, like, why do you think you can read out loud? What makes you think that you'll do any good at that? You have to ignore the stupid voice in your head and just how you would speak to other people, how you would think about other people. I guess this is just a life skill generally that I am yet to fully acquire. Be kind to yourself. You are good enough. You should be performing and reading your work at open mic nights if you want to, if you enjoy it, because it's a fun hobby, it's a fun thing to do and you'll make friends and meet people. Nobody's going to judge you. Nobody's going to, you know, sit there with scores. Unless you're in a slam, then you might be judged, but don't enter into a slam if you don't want to be judged. In a normal, nice, friendly open mic setting, people are going to appreciate your work. They're going to really enjoy what you have to say. What you have to say is worthwhile. It is important. It is your story. It is your words. And that is so key to this. So believe that you know, trust me. If you don't trust your inner voice, that horrible inner voice, trust me that you are good enough to read and you can come away from this, you know, sign up for an open mic. If you want to sign up and watch one first and see how it goes, then do that because they're great fun. If it's not your thing and you're happy to just read with a few friends in a group or to read at home on your own but you like reading them out loud, these are good tips for that hopefully as well. I feel I've talked a lot at you, but I hope some of those thoughts are useful and I hope that they'll help you feel more confident. As I said, they're just my ideas. That is not like, you know, the Bible of poetry or anything. But I have got some suggestions for open mic nights. These are all ones I have been to and been made to feel comfortable at, and where I can confidently say to you, you would be okay at. There might be other ones, I just haven't been to them or I don't know them or I've forgotten about them. But these are some that I would suggest for a variety of areas. Not all of them are running at the moment, so do check. Most of them are, but they're online, which is a great thing because it means you don't have to travel to go to them. So Fire and Dust in Coventry is online at the moment. It's usually at the Big Comfy Bookshop. Word Stafford, again, it's online at the moment. You can search for these on Google or on Facebook and you will find them. Wordwise in Derby. Yes, we can't. They say it in a different. They say it's funny when they say it because I have got the wrong accent to read it, and the joke doesn't come across right. But that's in Walsall. That's a really lovely evening with some great headliners. Script Stuff. There's 3 of those now. There's Leamington, there's Nottingham, and there's Banbury. Again, they're waiting, I think, till they can go back up and running in real life. Wordplay Coventry. Not running at the moment, but will be soon. That's usually at the Belgrade Theatre, and that's run by Nine Arches Press. So they get some absolute corkers at that one. I've probably mentioned it in these workshops, but I saw Imtiaz Darka there, for instance. De Barras is running online. That's based in Cork in Ireland. Really friendly, lovely community. So is Psoken Rod, I think it is. It's like a play on words again. Clonakilty. If you look up Clonakilty poetry, that's running online as well at the moment. Hit the Ode is usually at the Hippodrome in Birmingham, and that's a really nice environment. It sounds a bit daunting, so maybe do a few of the others first, but it's not at all. It's really lovely and friendly. And not running at the moment, but hopefully will be again soon, is the Bristol Pear in Sallyoak, which is where I used to frequent when I was a student at Birmingham University. And again, you will get a lot of the students, you get a lot of people from the local community, but they're really, really friendly. So the ones that are currently, right this month, right now, for the next 4 weeks running online, you know, if you're watching this like a year or two in the future, this is because we're in the middle of the coronavirus and everything's online. Fire and Dust, Word Stafford, and De Barras and Clonakilty are 100% online at the moment. Oh, and Yes We Can't as well, which is Poets, Prattlers and Pandemonialists if you want the Facebook page. So that was a lot of information. I hope I haven't blown your minds. And I'll be putting those up on the screen as well so that you can have a look at them. Final thing I will say on the topic of performing is watch people who you like and see what you like about their performances. The second part to this is then do not copy them because they are doing their thing, especially these people who I'm going to tell you now. They have very distinctive styles. Play around a bit. Find your own style and read in your style. That's important because that goes back to the confidence thing, the self-belief. You are good enough and your style, your individualism is important. So personally, people I could recommend would be Kay Tempest, excellent performer, verges into the sort of rap hip hop thing as well. She's on Spotify and on YouTube. Liz Berry is a black country poet. Now, she's not like loud, in fact she's the opposite of loud and performancy, but she is mesmerising to watch, and you know, her local dialect is so important in her work. It's just enchanting, so I can highly recommend her. The first poet that I saw live and made me realise that poetry was more than just like the stuff you read at school from people who had died a long time ago, and that actually it could be a job and you could be a poet and perform, was the wonderful Benjamin Zephaniah. So he does his poetry, he also does music as well and puts that behind it, so you can look him up with his band too. So another really good performer. Another one that's not for the children, a little bit sweary, John Cooper Clarke. He's famous for his bullet delivery. That was his thing, and there have been people try and copy it, but it's very much his thing and people associate it with him. So he's interesting to have a look at. He's a beat poet, but sort of a punk poet. I'm sure you probably will have heard of him, and most likely you will also have heard of Pam Ayres, another person who has got a very distinct style, and you can't help but read her poems in her voice in your head, which is always quite funny when you end up with that, with the accent in your own mind. So check those out. There's plenty of others. There'll probably be people at your own open mic nights who are maybe not published poets, but who are really good at what they do and who you find inspiring. So think what you like about their performances and see how you can take that and make it your own. Your challenge then, it's not going to be a surprise, is to have a go at reading one of your poems. Maybe one of the ones that you wrote today. Read it out loud. See if you want to make any edits after a few readings. And if you want to and you're able to, then, you know, here's your challenge to sign up to an open mic. And the ones that I've said, I know you will feel comfortable at, and I know you will be made welcome at, so that eliminates a lot of the worry, hopefully, for you. The best thing when you do feel a bit more confident is to record yourself, but don't do that if you're going to just pull yourself apart and it's your first reading. Do it after a while, and then see, maybe you realise that you do things that maybe you think, oh, I'll try not to do that. I used to fiddle with my hair because I was nervous. I didn't even know I was doing it until I saw the video, and I'm there in the video just reading my poem, flicking my hair about, which, you know, personally I didn't want to be doing that in my reading because it was probably distracting. And whoosh, good job, because I'm running out of breath here. We're at the end of the session. Thank you so much, everybody who supports these videos. Thank you to Positive Images Festival. Thank you for you, because you come and, you know, invite me into your home to do these activities with you, and I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for my subscribers. Really, really appreciated. And Oh, We Speak Poetry is on a break at the moment for Christmas because I need a break from it. But I've got some amazing videos that will be up in the new year. And so look forward to that. There's still, I think, 12 or 13 for you to have a look at if you've not seen them. They're from poets from a variety of different cultures and poems in different languages. So that's on my channel under We Speak Poetry playlist. Definitely check it out. And the next workshop will be on the 27th of December, as if that's the next one, like it will have been Christmas 2020. It's going to be there for a long time, so do not worry if you are busy in the Christmas period. Who knows who we're going to be able to see or what we're going to be able to do. But don't panic about needing to watch it on the day it comes out. However, Christmas isn't the easiest time for everybody. In fact, it's quite a difficult time for some people. So if on the 27th of December you want something to look forward to, and you want, hopefully, I hope it will be good for you and help you, then use it. Use it for that, to know that you've got some poetry company in your home. Thank you so much. Take care. Stay safe.